During the class, this is every Sunday, and then the temple room is packed. So we want to make space for everyone. Okay. So please everyone raise your hands. We'll call out for the mercy of Shri Shri Radha Golokanda. 3 times, let's loudly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Hare Krishna. Hari Naam Prabhu ki, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Let's warmly welcome His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai. So our program schedule, Maharaj will give the talk, and then after the talk at 6 p.m. we'll have a short presentation on the services for Janmashtami, how you all can get involved, and then after that we also have a small, very sweet presentation, and then we'll have dinner prasada. Right? So we'll have more announcement about Janmashtami upcoming festivals after the class. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
All right. All right, thank you very much, Aditya Ryan Prabhu, and as you know, we have a lot of festivals coming up. There's Balaram's appearance day, there's Janmashtami, there's Radhastami, so many. This is the festival season. So you're all invited to come for every festival. Sorry for the heat. I had nothing to do with it. Talk to that person on the altar about that, not to me. So anyway, by next year, we'll have, hopefully, the new temple will be ready. It'll be... Oh my God. So, just a little bit of news. We actually already signed a contract with a contractor for the new temple. So things are going to happen. There'll be more news about it on Janmashtami. We just want to pique everybody's appetite before we get into any more details. But it's going to happen if Krishna desires, so please be patient. And we ask everyone to pray for Ambarish Prabhu. Ambarish Prabhu is my dear godbrother who is basically headed up the construction and the plan for the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, which was Srila Prabhupada's order and Srila Prabhupada's desire and the desire of the past acharyas like Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur and others. So he's very important, very instrumental in carrying that out, and very dear to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, very dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. So we ask everyone to pray to Shri Shri Radha Golokananda for his health. He's in the hospital right now. I'm not going to get into the details, but please pray. Jaya Radha Madhura Kunja Bihati. You can play it? Great. Jaya Radha Madhura Kunja Bihati. Gopi Janabalaba Ye Badadade Gopi Janabalaba Ye Badadade Yasodanandana Brajajanurandana Yasunanandana Brajajanurandana Jamuna Tira Banachare Yamuna Tira Banachare Jai Radhu Madhura Kunya Bihavure Jai Radhu Madhura Kunya Bihavure Gopi Jana Banaba Gidibarud Hare Gopi Jana Banaba Gidibarud Hare Yasodhanandana Brajajanurandana Yasodhanandana Brajajanurandana Yamuna Tira Banachare Yamuna Tera Banachare Jai Radhu Madhuva Kunya Bihare Jai Radhu Madhuva Kunya Bihare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Radha, Golokananda Radha, Golokananda Radhe. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya. All Stotera Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Sabaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shai Makunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuram Ki Jai. Jagadada Swami Ki Jai. Munamai Ki Jai. Shrimandalasi Devi Ki Jai. Samvido Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Budale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni Somagana Timiranda Shagananjana Shilakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So today we like to speak about a very interesting topic. That's interesting. Something that affects all of us, because I was thinking about this week. Like everybody knows, I like to give an unusual perspective on things during the class. So I was thinking about this week, talking to different devotees about the topic of reputation. Anyone heard of reputation before? Because particularly in different cultures, particularly the Indian culture and the culture that I grew up in, reputation is so important. People would die rather than lose their reputation, isn't it? Or they would kill someone rather than lose their reputation. I'll tell you an interesting story about my own reputation. Before I came to the movement, my mother, being concerned with the reputation, she wouldn't tell anyone I had joined the Hare Krishna movement for years. She told everybody that I had gone to Israel to join what's called a kibbutz. Kibbutz? No. Anyway, it's a farm community, whatever. So basically, when I came back to visit her, I had to hide my Sika. She said, her friends said, "How was Israel?" I had to think, can't lie. Devotees can't lie. I said, "It was nice." I didn't say I was there. I didn't say I wasn't there. Okay. So in the Vedic culture, and I'm going to give a real balanced approach on this. Don't worry. I'm not criticizing anyone for being concerned about reputation. I'm concerned. about reputation. Everybody should be concerned. But let me explain exactly what I'm talking about. We have this statement given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about reputation. Nadanam, Najanam, who knows the rest of it? Nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmani janmani shrey. Bhavatad bhakti haritiki toye. You know, basically I'm not concerned about wealth. Anyone here unconcerned about wealth? Raise your hand. Rishikesh, you're not concerned about wealth? Well, we want to talk to you about the new temple after this class. Because, you know, you could sell your house and turn over your salary and everything like that. So, you know, we're concerned about wealth. Janam, you know, followers, you know, or family members like that. And, of course, Sundari, I'm a sannyasi. We don't talk about stuff like that here. So, in any case, we find that devotees are not supposed to be concerned about reputation. Yet we have these injunctions. You know, there are Vedic injunctions. What is it? One is that a sinful son in the family, this is a quote from Prabhupada actually, destroys the reputation of the whole family. Wow. So there is concern, but then, like I said, it's going to be a balanced approach. Don't worry. Wait till we get to the end. Don't walk out. So we have great devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who are completely unconcerned with reputation. I'll give you an example. One is this devotee called Srivas Thakur. He's an incarnation of Narada Muni, member of the, Panchatattva. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. So what happened is that one person wanted to ruin his reputation. The person who wanted to ruin his reputation, his name was Gopal Chapala. So, Srivas Thakur, great devotee, how do you ruin his reputation? You make it seem that he's a Shakta instead of a Vaishnava. Shakta means, you know, basically left-handed Shakta. What does left-handed mean? That means, in the West, that would be things like voodoo, or in India, it's all sorts of things like different types of, anyway, eating food out of a skull, you know. Yeah, tantric, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. So they wanted to make him seem to be a tantric, because the people were very upset with him. Why? He wouldn't let them in his house when they were having a kirtan. So they placed different tantric ingredients outside the house. And in the morning, everyone saw that. And Srivas Thakur basically said, all right, everybody knows I'm a tantric now. He wasn't concerned with his reputation. He thought, you know, whatever people think of me, that's all right. And we have other examples. An incarnation of Krishna known as Lord Rishabhadev. He did this thing called Jata Yoga. Jata Yoga basically means where you just wander around and act stupid so that nobody will talk to you. Now there's an advantage. You can chant your rounds. Right? I mean, sometimes, well, most of the times, I just block all my phone calls so I can have my sanity. So we also find that Jadbharata did that too. Of course, Lord Rishabhadev did that. He practices Jata Yoga, and ultimately he went back to Godhead. He's an empowered incarnation of the Lord. So we have Jadabharta also. Everyone's heard of Jadabharta? Jadabharta was very much afraid of falling into Maya. You know, being engaged in mundane things, because he had experience before, 2 births before. He was a great king, Bharat Maharaj, and he made a little mistake. He adopted a deer, and he became a deer. So he thought, let me avoid all social interaction, let me act stupid, let me have a horrible reputation. And so he did that. That's why it's called Jadabharata. and people used to make fun of him. He was put out in the fields to be a scarecrow. He was taken by some dacoits to be offered to Bhadrakali. And so many things happened to him for that particular purpose. Also, we have Shukadeva Goswami. I mean, so many examples of devotees being really detached, isn't it, from reputation. Shukadeva Goswami left home to preach Srimad Bhagavatam, and he didn't put any clothes on. And people were following him, making fun of him, until he arrived at the assembly where Maharaj Parikshit was, fasting for 7 days until he left his body. But you see that example, Shukadeva Goswami, even Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda was acted as an what? Avaduta. Avaduta in Sanskrit. That means like the wind. You know, here he was supposedly a sannyasi, and he had all this jewelry all over his body. Can you imagine if I came here to give class and I had earrings on, and jewels around my neck, and, you know, rings on every finger, and a Rolex watch? You know, it's a modern version. You'd say, is this a sannyasi? And then he even gets married, right? So, you know, reputation, he wasn't concerned with that. And then finally, we have this great personality who's the Vaishnavadam Yata Shambhu, Lord Shiva. He doesn't seem concerned either. That's very interesting. Okay, so should we be like that? Anybody have any ideas? Yes, okay. We got one yes. We could take a vote on this. Okay, so let's contrast it with other situations where people, and even God, was concerned with reputation. Here's an example of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, was residing in Jagannath Puri during the final years of his pastimes. And there was a king there. His name was Prataparudra. And King Prataparudra was a great devotee of the Lord. And so here's this king, great devotee, actually pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he wanted to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he went to different devotees. He went to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and other devotees and asked, please arrange for me to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what happened is that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refused. In fact, he was ready to leave Jagannath Puri because they were trying to convince him to see. He said for a sannyasi to see a materialistic person, and he described that a sannyasi has to keep good reputation. He said if a sannyasi has a little fault, like a spot on a white sheet, then everyone will advertise it widely. And that was before the internet. Can you imagine that? Nowadays, of course, even if you don't have any fault, they advertise it widely. He said when the general public finds a fault in a sannyasi, they become very, very happy. Fault finding. So he was even there then. And so he refused because of reputation. Well, that's quite a contrast between the other stories we told about Lord Shiva, Lord Nityananda, and other devotees like that, Srivas Thakur. So he was very concerned. Another time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the chanting of this lady. He didn't know it was a lady. And he was very attracted. She was chanting, I think, the Gita Govinda. And he was very attracted to the chanting. And he wanted to run up, and whoever was chanting, he didn't recognize it was a lady, and embrace the person who was chanting. So he kept running, but he was stopped by his servant Govinda. And Govinda said, it was a lady. And he said, you protected me. I would have been ruined. Because of reputation again. And even Srila Prabhupada was very concerned about reputation. Not only the reputation of the movement. I was just listening to a very interesting memory that my godbrother Abhiram Prabhu gave about Srila Prabhupada. Now, Srila Prabhupada, we understand his final days, he left in Vrindavan, a very glorious departure. So before Prabhupada went to Vrindavan, this is an amazing story told by Abhiram, who was actually Srila Prabhupada's nurse during the final days of Srila Prabhupada's tenure in this world. So before Prabhupada left this world, he was really enthusiastic to preach. In particular, he wanted to establish something called Varnashram. Anyone's heard of Varnashram before? Varnashram means basically being able to understand people's psychophysical nature in terms of the 4 Varnas and the 4 ashrams. 4 Varnas are the Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. The ashrams are Brahmachari, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. Because Prabhupada saw, even amongst many of his followers, that they were struggling in spiritual life. And of course, the Vaishnava is what? Transcendental to the Varnashram system. In fact, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was talking with Ramananda Roy, and Ramananda Roy presented to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, Varnashram is the means to achieve the ultimate goal, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected that. But Prabhupada understood that Varnashram was necessary as the fallback position, not only for devotees who were struggling, but for people in general, to understand one's psychophysical nature. Like if one's a Kshatriya, then you should be engaged in management. If one's a Brahmin, you should be engaged in preaching and everything like that. And if you're a Vaishya, go ahead and make money and give it to Krishna. And if you're a Shudra, you do artwork, music, everything like that. So it was very important for Prabhupada. So Prabhupada decided to come to America. And on the way to America, he stopped in the UK, London. And while he was in the UK, of course, he underwent so many health challenges. And there was an indication that he had a very short time left. And so he wanted to go back to Vrindavan, to leave this world from Vrindavan. Because he said to Abhiram Prabhu that make my departure glorious. In other words, not leaving the body, let's say, in the hospital. Prabhupada actually is amazing. You should listen to this discourse by Abhiram Prabhu. Has anyone heard it yet? Yeah, you've heard it. I mean, it's amazing what he actually spoke about, and the intimate relationship he had with Prabhupada, and the service he had, service attitude and love he has for Srila Prabhupada. So I just relish hearing more and more about Prabhupada. So basically, Prabhupada had a lot of health challenges. It was understood that he had a very short time to live. And even he underwent a procedure in the hospital just so that he would have enough time to go back to Vrindavan. Because otherwise, he wouldn't have made it back to Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada was very much interested in a glorious departure. Now, why was that? Not for false ego. Like I might be interested in something glorious because I want people to glorify me. That's false ego. But Prabhupada was interested in the future of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is Krishna's service. So this is the point we're getting to. So Prabhupada arranged for that. He went back to Vrindavan. Actually, first he went to Mumbai. And then he understood the temple wasn't going to be finished in time. And then he went to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, surrounded by all the devotees chanting, perfect Only, of course, wherever Prabhupada would leave would be perfect. But in the eyes of the public, perfect departure. In Vrindavan, surrounded by loving devotees, going back to home, back to God, or going to serve Krishna in the future. So, Prabhupada was very concerned. That's an example of that. Another example, and we have so many examples of people concerned with reputation, devotees. Arjuna was concerned. I mean, what does Krishna say to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita? For one who has been what? Anyone know the word? Honored, dishonor is worse than death. You know, one way that Krishna encouraged Arjuna to fight, he said, you know, if you don't fight, everyone's going to make fun of you and think you're Lagavite, think you're a light, you know, you're like a eunuch. And Krishna was making indirect reference to when Arjuna was a eunuch. Everybody knows that story? Arjuna was a eunuch. He became Brihanala. And he was a dance teacher. It's interesting. We're not going to tell that whole story now. So Krishna was stressing reputation is very important for a Kshatriya. Interesting. And Arjuna actually accepted that particular argument. And here's another example. I came up with so many interesting examples because I was thinking about reputation the last few days. Another example is Lord Narayan was concerned with his reputation. How is that possible? He's God. This is a story from the Bhagavatam. That, okay, Lord Narayan, he's in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha, right? And four little kids come to see him. Who were the four kids? The four Kumaras. Chatusa, the four Kumaras. So they come to see him. And they're stopped by Jai and Vijay. And they get very, very angry. And basically, Jai and Vijay made a little bit of an offense against these innocent young boys who were actually on the Brahman platform, and later on they became devotees. And Jai and Vijay were cursed by the four Kumaras. But then Lord Narayan comes, and he makes the statement that he's responsible for any offenses, you know, his reputation. This is interesting in the Bhagavatam. His reputation is hurt because of the actions of his servants, Jai and Vijay. So Lord Narayan is apologizing to the four Kumaras. Read it in the Bhagavatam. I found that quite interesting. And basically, he's arranging for the departure of Jai and Vijay to the material world, and of course he gives them that option. They can, you know, take the births as devotees or demons. And so because of his, one of the reasons was his concern for his reputation. Another important story about concern for reputation is the famous story in the Ramayana, Lord Ram. So Lord Ram spends all of this energy, of course he's God, it's a pastime, he's enjoying, obviously, you know, he's enjoying fighting with Ravan, Ravan's his devotee. But anyway, he spends all this energy fighting and saving and bringing back Sita Devi. All right. And then he tells Sita Devi, this is in the Valmiki Ramayana, the original Ramayana, okay, lady, you can go wherever you want now. Because he's so concerned with the reputation. Not false ego. God doesn't have false ego. He's concerned with the reputation because he knows he has to take charge of the kingdom. Even was it in Shakespeare? It says Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. In other words, anyone who takes a leadership position must have the faith of those who are working with them to be effective, especially if you're a king. Of course, nowadays, I guess it doesn't apply to politicians, because this is Kali Yuga. You know, the leg of the bull, what is the principle of what? Truthfulness. That story is there in the Bhagavatam. You know, the bull's legs are being cut. Cleanliness, mercifulness, truthfulness, and austerity, and truthfulness is remaining. I think that final leg has already been cut. And there's nothing remaining of that truthfulness now, if you read the news. So, but basically, the leader has to be truthful. Therefore, Ram, truthful and above suspicion. You know, Lord Ram was what? One arrow, right? One word, and one wife. Eka Patni Vrata. Of course, I'm not going to contrast that with Krishna. Krishna, many wives, many arrows, breaks his word. Anyway, but Krishna is God. He can get away with it. Ram is God too, but he's coming to set a perfect example, Maryada Purushottam. So it's a little bit different. So Ram says, all right, go anywhere you like, lady. And then you even arranges, of course, we understand it was Maya Sita, but he arranges for the Maya Sita to enter in the fire, and then later on, the real Sita comes out. Okay. But then later on, Sita comes back to the kingdom, she's pregnant. This is a very sad part of the story, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, it's heart-wrenching. Sita's pregnant, and Ram gets criticized by some washerman. Of course, he's so concerned with his reputation, he has spies, not to hurt people, but he has spies who report on the attitude of the citizens. And not only that, Lord Ram put on a disguise, right? So he could hear directly what the citizens were saying to him. And then he heard this washerman say, I'm not going to accept my wife back. Not going to be like that Lord Ram. Right? Isn't that what the washerman said? And Lord Ram heard that. He went back, and he eventually said to Lakshman, drop Sita off in the forest. And Lakshman, he didn't want to do it, but he always followed the order of Lord Ram. Of course, later on, he begged Lord Ram for the benediction that he would never appear as Lord Ram's younger brother anymore, but always be the older brother. But of course, when he became the older brother, he's then still, Krishna didn't listen to Balaram, and Lord Chaitanya didn't listen to Lord Nityananda. So it's quite interesting. Krishna's always the boss. Even if he's younger, he's still the boss. Even he bossed around Nanda Maharaj, when Nanda Maharaj wanted to do the sacrifice to Indra, you know, the big boss, he said, no, you're not going to do it. You should offer it to Govardhan instead. So, anyway, so we find Lord Ram very concerned with reputation. Wow. So this is a contrast between the devotees and Krishna's even incarnations who were not concerned with reputation. Final story is Yudhisthira Maharaj. He was very concerned with his reputation. In fact, when it came to the point when Krishna said to him, you have to declare Ashwatam is dead, he said no. He refused the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he has the reputation of always telling the truth. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting, very, very interesting. And finally, of course, as you know, they had to make the arrangement that Bhimsen had to kill an elephant named Ashwatam, and then he could say, Ashwatam is dead, or quite, Ashwatam, the elephant, is dead. So, in fact, he did lie. Because if you tell the truth in such a way to give the wrong impression, you're lying. It's the same thing. Things equal to the same thing or equal to each other. So basically, he was very concerned with his reputation. So how do we deal with it in our own lives? It's interesting. You know, we should be concerned, we shouldn't be concerned. What do we do in our own lives? Well, the answer is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Interesting. And the answer is the 6 surrendering principles that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us, Sharanagati. Some of you have heard of these things before. That is, the first one is accepting everything favorable for Krishna consciousness. So if it's favorable, let's take the example of a sannyasi. It's favorable for a sannyasi to have a good reputation. Otherwise, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed, how can someone preach Krishna consciousness? But for someone who is just a Babaji, he shouldn't care about worldly reputation. Someone who is just like, what is, detach himself, Paramahamsa, just going around, Radhe, Radhe, Radhe Govinda, because we don't advocate that. Please don't do that. We're a preaching mission. Krishna consciousness is a mission to save the world. So, like Prabhupada, preaching is the essence. Purity is the force. Of course, books are the basis. Utility is the principle. There's that same thing. Utility is the principle, can be compared, or it's similar to accept everything. Oh, spider. Chant to it. He came to hear class. Just let him say. He's a devotee. Just go see the deities now. So anyway, accept everything favorable for serving Krishna. So if reputation is favorable for serving Krishna, you accept it. If reputation is unfavorable, you don't accept it. That should be our standard. How we judge things, if we want to be Krishna conscious, in any standard of life, whether you're brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, you just judge whatever is favorable for serving Krishna. How do we know what's favorable? How do I know what's favorable for serving Krishna? That's an interesting question. That's why it's very important to have spiritual guide, a spiritual master. Like in my relationship with Prabhupada, whenever, hopefully I do this, whenever I do something, want to make a decision about something, where should I go, what should I do, I think about what would Prabhupada say. And if you know you're doing something to please Krishna, to please spiritual master, that's favorable. Like Yudhisthira, he didn't want to please Krishna, so he was acting unfavorably by not agreeing to lie, right? So favorable, and Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he didn't want to fight with his family members. We're not saying you should fight with your family members. You do anyway. But it's Kali Yuga. I mean, please don't. But that's not going to do any good. So we're not saying you should fight with your family members, but Krishna's desire. And Krishna's desire is to bring everyone. What is Krishna's, insofar as all of us here in this world, what is Krishna's innermost desire? To bring everyone back to their original spiritual position. Prabhupada would sometimes say that Krishna is an anxiety. Well, he's anxiety about us. Just like in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we have the story of Gopakumar. Gopakumar was born in Govardhan, the Govardhan area. And Gopakumar had a guru. It turns out that Krishna was in so much anxiety about that soul, Gopakumar, that he became Gopakumar's guru and initiated him. Krishna was thinking, when is he going to come back to me? And then later on, when Gopakumar became realized in his spiritual identity as the coward boy Sarupa, then he was sent by Srimati Radharani to bring a Mathura Brahmin back to home, back to Godhead. So we should act as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should act in whatever way is necessary to bring people to Krishna consciousness. Our mission statement, as I mentioned this many times before to the devotees, should be more devotees, happier devotees. Now, if we're building a new temple, we're building the temple for bringing more people to Krishna. Because ourselves, we can worship in our own homes, we could chant our japa and everything like that. So this is the standard. Accept everything favorable, reject everything unfavorable. That's how we understand reputation. And of course, the other surrendering principles given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are to always understand that Krishna's maintaining you, Krishna's protecting you, right? To have no separate interests other than the interests of the Lord. We should aspire for that, even though we may not be at that particular level right now. And finally, the most difficult one is what? What? No, the last one, what's the most difficult one? Be meek and humble. 6 surrendering principles. I'll go over them again. Accept everything favorable, reject everything unfavorable for serving Krishna. Understand Krishna is always maintaining one and protecting one. That's really important. Nitya nityanam, chaitanas chaitananam, eko bahunam, yobadadati kama. Krishna says, I'm maintaining the living entities. Krishna is the supreme one, and we're the plural living entities, and Krishna's maintaining us. And then no separate interests other than the interests of the Lord. How does one get to that point? By chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Following the practices of Krishna consciousness and gradually coming to that platform and then being meek and humble. And I'll give you an easy way to follow all that is you engage in the process of Sankirtan. Not only chanting yourself, but you can talk to Adityanarayan Prabhu, see here, about distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. And this book distribution and preaching of Krishna consciousness definitely keeps one meek and humble, and then one is ready to accept what's favorable and reject what's unfavorable. That's the story of reputation. So, anybody have any questions about reputation or surrender? Yes, Keshwan.
My question is the way you started in the beginning, where you were doing everything very well or trying to follow things, but somebody else is trying to destroy your reputation.
Yes.
Without you doing anything, but
They still do.
yeah. So if you know about such a person, what do you do about that?
T-
Stay away from them or avoid them?
That's an interesting question. In this world, even if you're the most honest person, I mean, even people, Prabhupada had people criticize him. People will criticize you. Now, the question is, how do you deal with it? You tolerate. First of all, the best way is to tolerate. However, if it's going to impede Krishna's service, then you may have to take some measures. You may have to go to court in certain circumstances. Like the devotees went to court to establish the Krishna consciousness movement is bona fide. They had this court case, and people were accusing us of not being bona fide. That's loss of reputation. This is when Prabhupada was on the planet. This was happening. And then we went to court against them. We instigated the court case. And Prabhupada said, you should get the judge to read all of our books. So the devotees went into the court with all of Prabhupada's Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is our evidence. Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Poor judge, he had to become Krishna conscious. Can you imagine that? Said, oh my God, what am I going to do for the next 20 years of my life? Just read Krishna conscious literature. So this is how Prabhupada advised the devotees. And then there was a big headline, Krishna conscious movement wins the case, Krishna conscious movement is bona fide. Prabhupada said, now we have, I forget the exact words, achieved victory. And so Prabhupada was very much interested in the reputation of the Krishna consciousness movement. So sometimes you may have to take measures like that, but not for one's false ego. Someone on the street says something to me, and someone says, you're stupid, I said, okay. Sometimes when I'm talking to people who don't happen to be members of the Krishna conscious movement, they tell me I'm going to hell. I said, okay. Whatever. You're the devil. Okay. Woo! I did that one time. Actually, they said, you're the devil. I said, oh, I'm going to get you then. They ran away as fast as their legs could carry them. So, just have to be practical, But with the internet, they're criticizing everybody and... Yeah, but anyway, so right now, I'm involved in a strategy just to prove that Srila Prabhupada's departure was a wonderful, glorious pastime. I'm not going to get into the details of what that means, but I'm involved. We have this group. We're involved in this. I'm meeting tomorrow about it, because people have criticism even about that. It's Kali Yuga. People are definitely hypercritical and looking for fault finding. And then as far as ourselves, we should be averse to fault finding. We should see the good in all, at least the devotees, but in everybody. Like Prabhupada would fan the spark. Prabhupada would sometimes criticize devotees to correct them, not to destroy them. So we can help people correct themselves, but generally, if we see a little spark of devotion, we should just fan it, encourage. You did this so nicely. If someone chants Hare Krishna once, according to the instructions of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we should offer respects in the mind. So we should be adverse. Lord Chaitanya's followers were averse to fault finding in others. So, okay, any other questions? Yes, Rishikesh. The microphone's not on.
Oh, yeah. Gurudev, I have questions, especially in India, those who are not like Krishna conscious, as Hindus, so they basically ask this question, why Krishna has not set the good, proper example, dancing with someone's wife in the night and leaving the battle and all that stuff. So what kind of answer I can give to them?
Because Krishna is setting a perfect example of God. He's independent. He's Swarat. You understand? Because God can do anything, and it's fine. So his incarnation is to show someone who is completely transcendental to all rules and regulations. It's an interesting question because we find, and I've commented on this a number of times, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, yad yada charati shreshtas tatat eveturo janaha. Great people act, all the world follows and pursues that same path. And yet Krishna doesn't follow his own instructions. But he set an example what it means to be the absolute independent Swarat, it means independent, controller of everybody and everything, and he's not under any rules. So I often say we follow Ram's example and we worship Krishna. You should not dance with other girls in the middle of the night. Probably you shouldn't even dance with your own wife in the middle of the night. So, and don't steal butter. We have cameras in the kitchen here, so. We once, it's a funny story. We once had someone here in the temple who was stealing the deity sweets. So I set up a camera. This is before, you know, all this fancy stuff. It was when you had these old cameras, you know, video cameras. And I caught this lady sneaking into the kitchen, looking around and stealing sweets. So, anyway, don't follow Krishna's example, follow Krishna's instructions. And so he's God, yeah, supreme. But all the other appearances of Krishna, like Lord Chaitanya, very, very strict in Dharma. And of course, what to speak of Lord Ram? Lord Ram is a perfect example. Okay, good question. So, I guess it's time. We're supposed to see a little video now or something? Okay. So, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for such an enlightening talk. So let's give a big Haribol to Maharaj for such a wonderful class. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki. Hare Krishna. So, as we mentioned earlier, we have a short video and then we have information about our biggest festival of the year, 40 years of New Goloka, our grand Janmashtami celebration on August 16. So we'll have different services. We want everyone here to be involved with Janmashtami, offer a seva for the pleasure of Shri Shri Radha Golokananda. But before we go to seva, which Vikasana Krishna Prabhu is going to present, we have a short video. It's a very sweet video. Yesterday, all around North America, was planned as the Youth and Children and Youth Book Distribution Day. So children and youth all over North America, all the main cities, they went out yesterday and just meeting different people, presenting, and particularly now for Janmashtami, we are focused